porn.
I mean, why? Like I know Wild Thing from Major League.
Entirely different song. But yes, Tone Loc,
Uh,
Loked After Dark, quality, quality rap artist. In any event, I think we are live now here on the NBA DFS Strategy Show. Adam is looking like a giant today. I am looking normal. So there we go. So Adam is a giant in all things GPP. Adam, how was your night last night? I once again exactly broke even to the dollar for the second straight day. I
I'm pretty
can't
jealous of that.
complain, but son of a
Yeah,
really exactly 2 days in a row. God.
yeah, I'm pretty jealous of that. That's better than my night went yesterday. Too much Gasol, too much Winslow. Got a lot of other stuff right, but had enough of them that it didn't really matter.
All right. The thing that has been helping me out has been three mans. So I've been playing some three mans. I've been putting together, quote, my cash lineup, which I haven't done. But I think I'm 11 and 4 in the last 3 days. I just play 5 of them. But I go look over there on DraftKings and try to find names of people I don't recognize and then join their contests. Doesn't matter if they have a badge or not. As long as I don't recognize their name, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, you got to go to like one extreme or the other. Either people you don't recognize or people that you do recognize, but you know they play really similar lineups in those.
Oh, Adam, Chad is convinced that you were out on a bender last night. No, we recorded the podcast. What time we finished up with the pod? Like almost 10, I think.
Yeah, it is too damn cold for me to be outside.
It's
I've actually there's been like 4 different nights in the last week where I'm like, all right, I'm going out, and I shower, and then I get out of the shower and I look at my phone and the temperature, and I'm just like, nah, I'm not. Next week will be good. Like it's warming up, so next week you'll probably get some hungover shows from me, but
all right.
not this week.
Let's see where it's. Oh God, it's all the way up to 31. It was 11 this morning when I got up. So
Yeah, it was 12 here when I woke up.
balmy, balmy. All right, let's get going here. Oh my all my pages don't want to work, so we'll have to get those to work. In the meantime, we do have 11 games, so I want to make sure that you guys know we are going to go game by game here. If there are any that we feel are just crappy or very disappointing, we'll give an abbreviated peek at them, but we'll still hit what is definitely viable. We're still waiting on news to determine what is going to happen with regards to the players coming to Dallas in the trade, but
They're out.
oh, they are out. Okay, perfect. So say hello to Powell, Solomon, and a few others who we will be talking about. We have with the three. There's only 3 games tomorrow with the Super Bowl. Those go off at 1, 2, and 3. So we're getting 22 teams in action on our main slate. There's also a 5 o'clock game. We do have projections up for that. We have Alex's Osimo's showdown slate rankings for that as well, so you want to check that out. That's behind the paywall. You can use the promo code DFS strategy and get 50% off any month package for your first month. Choose the Fantasy Cruncher add-on and that will be included as well. Adam, we'll just do news and notes as we go game by game because there's just a litany of things and we'll forget, and because this show is probably going to take 90 minutes plus, we'll probably also receive some information as we go through things here as teams get shoot-arounds, checking in with those on the road, etc. So let's start off with our first game here. That's going to be Chicago, and they are heading to Charlotte. We know that Zach is questionable with an ankle sprain. I think he's going to play in this one. That's just my initial read. The only other news and notes for this one is Wayne Selden, who is dealing with a knee injury. Remember, he has been picked up now by Chicago, or he's resurfacing in the rotation because they have a litany of other players that are out. We know Jabari Parker is away from the team for personal reasons. Chandler Hutchison is going to be out for at least 1 more week, and they're just a mess. No more Carmelo Anthony. He went quietly into the night for his Chicago career. But take it away here, Adam. We've got Kemba Walker. We've got Lauri Markkanen and his vastly improved rebounding. What do you like from our first contest of the day?
Yeah, I mean, starting on the Chicago side, you have Levine questionable, like you said. Right now, I have him projected in. They said yesterday that he would probably be probable, and then he came out as questionable. So I have no idea what that means.
Questionably, he came out as questionable when he was probably going to be probable.
Yeah, so I have no idea what that means, but the big news that we do have here is that Jabari Parker is out. That could affect Bobby Portis. I'm not entirely sure how much. We haven't seen Portis playing any time at the 4 lately. It's just been purely backing up Robin Lopez. And this is a game that very, very easily can go small and that I expect to go small. So I'm not sure how much Portis we get alongside Lopez, but I have him projected for 28 minutes right now. That's enough to make him a reasonable option on either site. It could go a little bit higher. It could go a little bit lower. I don't think it would be surprising at all to see Wayne Selden playing back up 4 minutes behind Lauri Markkanen. So I really want to pay attention to ownership on Portis. If the popular opinion is that he's just playing like a ton of minutes because Parker's out, then I would gladly be underweight. If it's not, then you can obviously take a chance because I think the minutes are pretty volatile here. Wayne Selden should get a ton of minutes. He's not super productive, and it's an 11-game slate, so you probably don't need to get there, but I think he gets a lot of minutes. Dunn and Markkanen and Levine, obviously the focal points from this team. Markkanen really locked in, I think, the 36 to 38 minutes with Parker out. So I like him quite a bit. I like Dunn and Levine to a certain extent. Not the most appealing game here overall, but with Parker being out, I think it does help to solidify Markkanen's minutes.
All right, and this is just one of those games that's not overly thrilling. If we get some players from this game, no problem. 216 over under. We have 4 games that have at least 20 more implied points. So that's a 10% more potential fantasy production there. Something you want to consider. We do know a fair amount of these stats will be consolidated in the guys that Adam mentioned, particularly for Chicago. On the other side here, we have Kemba Walker at 8,600 on DraftKings. He has been pedestrian is what I'm going to go with, Adam. Pedestrian. Downright disappointing. Seems like a bit much, but pedestrian without Cody Zeller. And you were one of the first to kind of point that out as being a potential issue for him and the way he plays the game. So that's, kudos to you. 8,600, I don't think he's going to pop anywhere for me.
Yeah, I mean, I pointed it out, but I wasn't expecting it to be this drastic, the drop off. I mean, we're talking about a month's worth of games now since Zeller has been missing time, and Kemba's barely averaging over a fantasy point per minute. That's more of a drop off than I expected. The shooting efficiency has gone down. The assist percentage has plummeted. He's down to 22.9% since the injury. The minutes are still there. It's a phenomenal matchup. He still has upside if he's able to knock down his shots in any particular game, but it's been long enough now where I really am concerned about Kemba until Zeller comes back. I adjusted his rates accordingly, and so I still have him as a decent play here at a relatively inexpensive price tag for him, but nowhere near as exciting as it would be, if Zeller were in or if Kemba were producing like he was earlier in the year. Just looking at guys from this game, like looking at FanDuel pricing, you have Kemba at 8,500, or you have Chris Dunn at it was less than 8,500, a lot less, 6,900 or 6,800. I think that Dunn is my preferred option between the two.
All right, I heard the magic calling of a nice number. So 6,700 for Dunn. Not quite there. 200 away from being a nice number.
Yeah, 6,800 on FanDuel.
Okay. That is just. I don't think I'm going to end up with too much. I don't hate Marvin Williams, but again, we're going to have a ton of Dallas value or minutes and opportunity, and we've got Jeremy Lamb 5,900. Reasonable matchup, but just I think these guys are going to come out in the wash here and just aren't really going to make my squad. Is there anything else that you like from this first game on the main slate?
Not really. It is worth mentioning the center rotation for Charlotte, just because we saw Biyombo play 32 minutes last night, as we kind of expected on the strategy show and the deeper dive yesterday. He wasn't very productive, but he played 32 minutes. But now we're back to a spot where he really doesn't need to. I have him projected for like around 16 minutes that he was playing in the 3 games prior to yesterday. Chicago does have a true center in Robin Lopez, but it's just not the kind of guy that does a whole lot on the offensive end. So I expect that you see Biyombo and Hernan Gomez play enough minutes maybe to match Lopez, but that the rest goes to Marvin Williams, and you see this game go small with more minutes for Williams, more minutes for Bridges, Kid Gilchrist. Nothing really that makes it super appealing for fantasy purposes. I just wanted to point that out for anyone who looked at yesterday and thought maybe Biyombo plays 30 plus minutes again. I don't really see it in this spot.
And that's actually a really good point to bring up, because a lot more teams are not playing that traditional size center. That's despite Biyombo not being a giant. I think when we hear Biyombo, we think Mutombo. He is definitely not a 7-footer. He is about 6'8" or 6'9", but still plays with a presence. But he gives up a lot of size to some of the guys and doesn't have a lot of speed to keep up with the others. So it needs to be the appropriate matchup for him. But Charlotte's not afraid to run him out there for reasonable amounts of time. On to our next game here. We have the Milwaukee Bucks heading into Washington to take on your Wizards. The Bucks are 7-point road favorites. No respect, Adam. No respect for the Wizards, for Scott Brooks.
I think that is respect.
Well, I was going to say, nor should there be any respect because, God, they suck. But anyway, we have the road team favored just handsomely here by 7, a 228 over under. That one is kind of nice. The Wizards are actually, since Christmas, they are playing. Let me get to my page here. They're playing at the 13th fastest pace, and they actually have the 7th best net rating over that time. Now, the pace kind of offsets some of that net rating, and we know that the opposing centers can just kind of feast on whomever is winning the lottery ticket tonight. I suspect we'll see more Thomas Bryant than anything else. We do have Otto Porter dealing with a toe injury. We have Bledsoe on the other side is dealing with a sore ankle, Achilles, but he has been very nice in his last couple games. And then Middleton was back in their last game, so he's someone he was back at practice, so he should be someone that we can consider. Let's start off here with the Bucks, since the Wizards do give up a fair amount of fantasy goodness. Giannis from the top.
Yeah, it's looking pretty site dependent for me as far as the Bucks overall. I love Giannis on DraftKings or FanDuel. The issue with him, as always, is just that the Bucks are really, really good, and there are a lot of games where he doesn't need to play his full amount of minutes because it doesn't matter who they're playing or where they're playing them. They can just blow anyone out pretty early in a game. So you run that risk. But if this game does stay remotely competitive, you should get 35, 36 minutes from Giannis in a good spot. Even though Washington's been improved defensively, they just don't have anything that we should expect to slow Giannis down. They don't have a lot in the way of rim protection. They're still not a very good rebounding team. So there's a lot of different ways for Giannis to get there. He's been averaging nearly 1.7 fantasy points per minute for the last month plus. So it's not a production issue for him at all. It's just a matter of playing enough minutes. Even in their last game, he was in foul trouble against Toronto, so he only played about 28 minutes. So the minutes for him are risky, but the production's certainly there. And the price tag is cheap enough. I mean, he's 11-7 on FanDuel, which is fine. He's 10-9 on DraftKings, which is outstanding. So it basically just means that if he gets fewer than that 35 or 36 minutes, he probably still does fine. And if he does actually get his full amount of run that he gets in the few competitive games the Bucks actually play, then he probably just blows that price tag away.
All right. That one, he's a nice one over there. I've been taking him second on my drafts. The draft 8-mans, I've done about 5 of them over there on draft.com. You don't get a lot of the teams are so deep, there's so many of them, there's not a lot of differentiation, but a few people have been throwing out custom made 10-mans. That makes it a little bit more interesting because another 10 players are picked. But this is one of the days I don't get fired up to play unless I think there is going to be an advantage. However, they will be running out a shorter slate at night. I prefer the 8-man, so we're not going to get those today on the shorter slate, but something to check out if you are interested. Moving on down the remainder of the Bucks here, we're seeing Malcolm Brogdon sort of settle back into the rotation. He was dealing with some injuries, but he should see something in the low 30s for minutes in this game. These two teams met about 3 weeks ago. The last time, and it was just the Wizards actually won. That was on the strength of Tomas Satoransky's triple-double. There was no Giannis Antetokounmpo in that game. Looking at the guards, would you be intrigued by Brogdon for a bit of a salary saver on some sites? You've got Eric Bledsoe, again, dealing with that Achilles. Chris Middleton, kind of the swingman. Anybody else here for the Bucks that makes the short list?
Yeah, I think Brogdon on DraftKings at 5,400 is really appealing. Should play around 32 minutes here. And over the last month, you're looking at about a 20 almost a 21% usage rate, 16% assist percentage. Just does a lot of things when he's on the floor. Does a lot of things well. And I think that price tag's low enough. 6,200 on FanDuel, I'm much less excited about. Bledsoe, it's kind of the same thing. He's 6,900 on DraftKings. He's 73 on FanDuel. I think he's fine on either site. I would prefer him on DraftKings. And then Middleton, 67 on FanDuel, 64 on DraftKings. Should play around 34 minutes. He has, a 23.5% usage rate over the last month. I think that he's a fine play on either site. I think that he's a little bit better on DraftKings as well.
All right. Anything else there for the Bucks?
No.
All right. The Wizards, on the other hand, Bradley Beal. I'm still going back to the well on that one. We haven't seen the awesome kick-ass games without John Wall that we were hoping for, but he's still getting the minutes. He's still getting the shots. Tomas Satoransky may come into some lineups, especially with dual position eligibility on DraftKings. He's point guard, small forward, but he's right kind of at that break point where things are, he may fall out of it. Those are really the only two Wizards I'm intrigued by, Adam. Jeff Green, not really excited by. Otto Porter, I don't want to deal with the toe injury. I don't know, is he starting? Is he not starting? This would otherwise be a decent matchup for him, but that's just kind of annoying as heck. So for me, it really looks like Beal and Satoransky. And there's so many centers in play today that Bryant's just not making the initial cut here. What do you like from your Washington Wizards?
Yeah, I mean, Beal... there's a pretty big price difference between FanDuel and DraftKings for him. He's $1,000 less expensive on DraftKings. So I like him more on DraftKings. I think he's okay on FanDuel, but there's plenty of other options that we can get to. His minutes, I mean, the Wizards have been in kind of blowouts the last two games. The game against Cleveland, they came back late, but that was on the strength of the bench. Last game, they blew out Indiana. But Jordan McRae has cracked the rotation for Washington. I think that there's a chance that Scott Brooks uses him to kind of spell Beal a little bit. So maybe we see 36 minutes instead of 40 more frequently. So I have Beal at 36 minutes here. He certainly could play more, but that's enough to get me to probably get a pretty decent amount of him on DraftKings and less on FanDuel. Satoransky, I agree with you. It's the minutes are just huge. Outside of the last two games where he played 23 against Indiana in a blowout, he played 31 against Cleveland in what was almost a blowout. He's playing 36 plus minutes a night, and it's not a great matchup against a very good Milwaukee defense, but the minutes are there, and he's a productive enough player that he should be able to get there at a $5,600 or $6,100 price tag. I think he's fine. Jeff Green obviously depends on the Otto Porter news. I think that he gets some time at center regardless, which is nice. If he starts, it's certainly a scary matchup because he's going to have to deal with Giannis, but the minute should be there if he stays out of foul trouble. I think that a $4,700 price tag is fine. I would still rank him behind Beal, Satoransky, and even Trevor Ariza.
All right, here's the just kind of for perspective, since this is one of our first games, this just goes to show what ownership can look like on a 22-team player pool. We have Chris Middleton. The Field's got him at 10. This is DraftKings. I've got him at 19 on my initial crunch. Bradley Beal, the Field is at 13. I've got him at 17. Bledsoe is 4. I've got him at 15. I think he may fall out off the radar for some people, so he should be good to go with that Achilles. 6,900, there's your very nice price on DraftKings, but he is in a solid spot here. Brogdon at 5,400, as Adam mentioned, 13% for the Field. I've got him at 13% myself, and that's it. Giannis is the only other guy. The Field, we have him at 14. Unless you goose his projections, you're not going to get a ton of him because he's coming in right around that 5.1, 5.2 rate, and there's going to be a lot of other players that will get there. What is your, if you have done your projections already, where are you pegging Giannis at for tournaments?
I have him at 34 minutes, so I have him on DraftKings.
Just shy of 60 points, probably.
Yeah, on FanDuel, I have him at 58.5. On DraftKings, I have him, I think, at like exactly 60. Yeah, 60, exactly.
See, by osmosis, I've done enough shows with you. I've never seen your projections, but via osmosis here, I'm dialed in. Or, sun shines on a dog's ass every once in a while. Anything else from our second of 3 7 o'clock games?
No.
All right. The final of the 3 7 o'clock games, we do have Brooklyn at Orlando. Brooklyn is a bit of a mystery, a little bit of a riddle here. We know that Spencer Dinwiddie is out. We're pretty sure that I think Crabbe is still going to be out, so that limits a few of the options. D'Angelo Russell, 8,200, but he has kind of been a poor man's James Harden recently. He's putting up some very nice scores. You get a significant discount from him. In his last, 7 games, he's gone 48, 52, 39, 21. That was a bit of a dud. He did get 4 fouls in that one against the Knicks. We all remember that. Against Orlando, just a week ago, 54 fantasy points, 55 against Sacramento, and then in Orlando 10 days ago, 58. Solid matchup here, Adam. Price is ticking up, but I like this one. I like this one a lot.
Yeah, so do I. The problem for me is the price tag, just because it puts him into a tier of players that either play more minutes than him or are more consistent over a sample size larger than the last month. But it's still there's still plenty of upside for him in tournaments. It's not a bad matchup against Orlando. We know that he's very productive without Dinwiddie on the floor. For the season, he has averaged almost 44 DraftKings points per 36 minutes without Dinwiddie on the floor, almost a 40% assist percentage, over a 30% usage rate. It's been even better over the last month. So there's nothing to dislike about Russell. It's just that you have to keep in mind that there is risk because Kenny Atkinson does weird things sometimes.
All right. Outside of Russell, nobody else is really coming up. Joe Harris is healthy and starting, so he is getting minutes here. He's got 32 and 32 in his last pair of games. Expecting him to see somewhere similar to that, but not really that exciting. He is at 4,800, kind of the pivot away from some of those Denver guys, but his upside is all tied to him getting peripherals, and sometimes that can be tough for him. That is really it. What do you think about Jarrett Allen going against Vucevic? We have seen this matchup twice recently. He got 29 minutes, 24 fantasy points, 26 minutes, 31 fantasy points. So not really anything for us to do cartwheels over, but he is getting solid minutes once again, Adam.
Yeah, I mean, I have him at 28 minutes. It's the problem is just how deep the center position is. You mentioned it earlier, but it's an incredibly deep position today, like even more so than usual, because you have most of the really good centers on the slate, and most of them are also in excellent matchups. So it's going to make it really tough for me to get to 28 minutes of Jarrett Allen.
All right, last guy, because I can't tell what to do with him, Shabazz Napier. Do you think the Nets may have wished they had held off on that large contract for Dinwiddie? Because apparently they have the Dinwiddie replacement already on their team for a fraction of the cost. What are we doing with Shabazz Napier? This is just luck, right? This is just his career hot streak, and then it's all downhill from here, right?
No, I mean, he's been pretty good all season, even when he plays alongside Dinwiddie or plays alongside Russell. The price tag's high enough where I don't anticipate getting a lot of him, but he's played 205 minutes now without Dinwiddie over the last month. He's averaged over a fantasy point per minute with a 27% usage rate. And a 23% assist percentage. I mean, the opportunities are there. The minutes are there. We saw him play nearly 30 minutes last game, even with Russell playing about 34. So he's pretty clearly carved a nice role for himself in the rotation. It's just a matter of how much upside he really has now that his price tag's up over 5K.
All right, flipping over here towards the Magic, we do know that Jonathan Simmons has been ruled out already, so secures minutes for Jonathan Isaac, DJ Augustine, etc. Nothing overly exciting from those two guys, but I don't hate Jonathan Isaac. The price is coming up, but he is... I know you're not a huge fan of his. Apparently I have a secret man crush on him, Adam, but those guys aren't really popping in my model. The guys I hate... Aaron Gordon, I can never figure him out. Just disappointing, enigmatic, and then pops for 45 fantasy points. Vooch, one of the guys I want to look to. He's gotten 50 plus in the 2 most recent meetings against Brooklyn. Start off with Vooch, and then is there anybody after Vooch that's making your player pool?
Vooch is absolutely phenomenal. I love him here. The minutes are up a little bit. Like for most of the season, we'd seen him like kind of top out at 34 minutes, but normally come in right around like 32. We've been seeing him hit 34 more frequently. He actually got up to 34 and a half last game, which is, just a good sign. So I haven't projected for 34 minutes here, but he's just been so incredibly good, all season long, but especially over the last month. He's averaging, since the start of January, he's averaging just shy of 52 DraftKings points per 36 minutes, 1.44 points per minute, almost a 30% usage rate, 23.5% assist percentage, 21.2% rebounding percentage. I believe still the only player in the NBA that's averaging over 20% usage, assist, and rebounding percentages for the season. And now he's in a great matchup against this Brooklyn front court that just does not have an answer for him. Again, the center positions loaded at the top. You have him against Brooklyn. You have Towns and
Jokic.
Yeah, Towns and Jokic facing off against each other. And you have Embiid against Sacramento. So it's a loaded position at the top. But I love Vooch here. Definitely one of my favorite plays. And then Aaron Gordon, it's a good matchup for him. Obviously he kind of comes and goes, and a good matchup doesn't necessarily mean everything. But we're seeing big minutes. Played I think 34 in their last game, but before that had been playing 38 a night. It's only 6,500 on DraftKings. If you can't get to Vooch, or it's a lineup where you're playing a different center, I think that taking Aaron Gordon there makes a lot of sense, because the rebounds are going to go for the most part to one of these two guys. And if Vooch doesn't have as big a game, there's a pretty good chance that it's because Gordon happened to grab a few extra rebounds, get a few extra points, and kind of cut into his production.
All right. Anybody in the backcourt there, or shall we move along?
I like Terrence Ross to an extent. I mean, the price tags come up to where it's not like he's a phenomenal play, but he clearly has the upside. He's been shooting really well. He should get around 30 minutes here. So, not a core player or anything, but someone that I certainly expect to have in some tournament lineups.
All right. Well, shout out to him. University of Washington, my alma mater. There we go. My favorite game for Terrence Ross, when he was with Toronto and dropped 52 real NBA points.
My favorite game was like last month when he faced Sacramento and hit like 4 straight threes to bring Orlando back and win me a bunch of money.
Well, that sounds more fun than my favorite moment, because money is involved. And money trumps everything, Adam. Oh gosh, did I just use our president's name? I did. Let's see. Looking at our, we'll go to FanDuel here. Nobody from this game is coming up on more than 7% of my crunch. And the highest player we have is Vucevic at 18. He is coming in at 3 for me. What are you projecting Vooch for this evening? 51?
I'm at 55 FanDuel and 56 DraftKings.
Oh, there we go. Let me update this. I just want to see where he's going to roll at that point. He'll probably come in a little bit higher. Remember, when you're looking at your projections, one of the things you can do on Fantasy Cruncher is they have the randomness setting, which, so like if you were to set the randomness at 10, it would take somewhere between 10% less and 10% more, and any number in between, off of the projection that you have, or add to it. So it gives you a little flexibility, because of course nobody hits exactly what their projections are, or for the most part, the vast majority do not do so. Let's see here. Oh, this is going to take a minute because there's so many people in the player pool. Let's move on to our next game here. Adam, I'll circle back and let everybody know what happens with the Vucevic update. We're into the 7:30 hour. We've got 2 here. Some of the sites, DraftKings is doing a stub slate here for the 2 7:30 games. You have Indiana at Miami, 204 over under. Sad, Adam. Sad. That's all I've got for this one. No one's coming up in any of my crunches.
I mean, there's some news that could open things up for Indiana here, and open up some value. We have McDermott's doubtful, which really doesn't matter all that much. I expect that you'll see Edmund Sumner pick up more minutes. He's long enough that he can deal with Josh Richardson for some period of time. But Corey Joseph, also questionable, picked up the start last game, played 36 minutes. If he sits, then you really have a lot of minutes opening up for Sumner and for Aaron Holiday, who is a productive player when he gets to play. It's just that he's basically solely been the backup to Darren Collison so far. But if Joseph and Evans are both out, Evans also questionable, so we have to keep an eye on that. But if Evans and Joseph are both out, it opens up minutes where I think Holiday has to get enough minutes to be a viable option at basically a minimum price tag. If Joseph's in, I think Joseph's fine as a value play. We saw 36 minutes last game. I haven't projected for 34 here, but cheap enough where he's a viable option. Outside of that, though, it's just kind of tournament darts on guys like Collison, Thad Young, Miles Turner. Turner, the biggest problem with him is just how deep the center position is. Again, he's just not a priority for me. Darren Collison coming off of a really nice game against whoever he played last time. He for the season without Evans or Oladipo on the floor, he has a 20% usage rate and a 38% assist percentage. He's been very productive. That's not a huge sample, so I don't want to completely rely on that, especially in a not very appealing matchup against Miami or paced game against Miami. But I think he's fine. Thad Young's been over a point per minute guy in this situation as well, and he's reasonably priced. So not guys that I'm getting to a ton, but certainly across 150 lineups, they should be low owned, and I probably will have some.
Yeah, good call out there on Aaron Holiday, because that one I did not see. Echoing what you said, you gotta have Joseph out before this is even a thing. One thing I didn't mention: a lot of people are saying Tyreke Evans questionable with the lower back. Last I saw, now I didn't check again this morning, but last I saw he wasn't even accompanying the Pacers on this road trip, and this game's down in Miami, so I don't. I mean, unless he flew there ahead to catch up with them, he may not even be with the team.
Yeah, I mean, they had said that he wasn't traveling with them, but they hoped he'd rejoin them at some point on the trip. So I don't know.
I'd like to go to South Beach early this time of year as opposed to Indianapolis. So.
Yeah, he was probably there already. So
that is a veteran move. Oh, yeah. I don't think I can make the flight. My back hurts. If you guys go to the Midwest, I'll catch up to you in Florida.
Yeah.
That'll be interesting to see what we've got here. Now, to be fair, their last two were in Washington and Orlando. So, but still veteran play. Yeah. That's really doing it for this game.
I don't have much of anything from Miami.
This next 7:30 game we're going to get a lot of. So this is where we'll spend some time, because we have some opportunity on both sides. As Adam mentioned, the guys involved in the trade, that would be Trey Burke, Courtney Lee, and Tim Hardaway, will not be playing this evening. That's going to portend good things for a lot of the Mavs. There's a solid chance that Luka Doncic is going to play. He's dealing with an ankle injury, though he is listed as questionable. He himself has said he plans on playing.
He's in.
He's in. Okay. Let's start at the top with Luka. 8,300, phenomenal matchup against the team that is allowing the worst defensive rating since Christmas. They're giving up 120 points per 100 possessions, Adam. And we did this exercise, I think we did it earlier, it was either Monday or last Saturday. Go look at their game logs. They are giving up 120, 130 regularly, and there's not overtimes involved in that. They are horrid. So where are you putting Doncic at that 25% discount to Harden, to Giannis, etc. in your plans for this evening on DraftKings?
He's one of the top plays on the entire slate, regardless of site, regardless of position, regardless of format. There's just I wouldn't be surprised at all if he's my highest owned guy. I'm not saying at noon that he will be. I have no idea, but I wouldn't be surprised. Like, he's grading out as just an absolute top play for me, because not only is it a good matchup against Cleveland, or a very good matchup against Cleveland, and we know how good Luka has been lately, but if you look at numbers without Matthews, Smith, or Barea on the floor this season, he's averaged 1.33 fantasy points per minute. If you take DeAndre Jordan off the floor as well, you get to 1.4 fantasy points per minute. Only 84 minutes played, but a 34.5% usage rate, a 14.5% rebounding percentage, a 37% assist percentage. He's going to have to do everything for this team, and he should at this point be flirting with triple doubles on a nightly basis. So I think the price tag's just way too cheap. You have him on FanDuel at $9K, so he's like $500 less than Bradley Beal. On DraftKings, he's $200 less than Beal, and he has small forward eligibility to go along with point guard eligibility. So there's really just no reason for me not to like Luka here. They've already said they expect him to play. There's no reason for them to be like rushing him back out there. So I imagine that he really had a minor ankle issue, and they just held him out the second half of the back-to-back, and he's perfectly good to go.
What are you projecting him for points? Are you getting him close to 50 on both sides?
I'm getting him over 50 on both sides.
Okay. So if you run him at 52 on DraftKings, he's going to come in on half your lineups.
What if I run him at 55?
You run them at 50. Well, my computer's slightly faster than yours, but it is running the show. But let me run it at 55, and we will see. And while we're doing that, just wanted to point out that when I upped Vucevic on FanDuel to 50 points, he came in matching the field at 18%. So again, only one center is available on draft or on FanDuel, so that tends to keep a lot of their numbers in check here. While we're running this one, it'll take just a minute here. What do you like coming down the rest of the roster here with regards to, let's stay away from the old guys for a minute, but Powell, Mejri, any of the guys in the backcourt, what do you like next? Because Powell is currently sitting as our highest projected player on DraftKings with regards to ownership.
Yeah, so different pricing on the two sites. You have Jalen Brunson at 3,600 on FanDuel. I think is still a perfectly fine play. Probably plays around 34 minutes. Probably is not very productive. He has a 15.5% usage rate alongside Luka without Smith or Barea on the floor this year. So it's more of a price play there, especially because you can just drop him. On DraftKings, where he's 4,200, it's much less appealing because it's just pretty unlikely that you get a 30-plus fantasy point game from him, which is what you're looking for at that price. Dwight Powell, we'll have to see who starts this game. We saw Mejri start last game against Andre Drummond. That was kind of predictable, because it was just because of the size matchup. Not sure that they need to go to Mejri here, but either way, if he starts, I think you get only around 18 minutes from Mejri. You probably get 24 to 26 minutes from Powell. So at 3,700 on FanDuel with power forward eligibility, I absolutely love Dwight Powell. There's no reason not to, I don't think. And at 4,400 on DraftKings, I think he's still a good play. He's right around a point per minute producer. It's a favorable matchup against Cleveland. It's just not, quite the slam dunk play that it is on FanDuel. And the same goes for Maxi Kleber, who is 41 on DraftKings and 3,800 on FanDuel. He played fewer minutes last game than he would have had he not been in foul trouble. He played almost 19 first half minutes. I think he was going to get right around 36 for the game. With Doncic coming back, I went ahead and pulled Maxi back to about 32 minutes, but still at a $3,800 price tag on FanDuel and 41 on DraftKings, he comes in as a pretty strong value option, especially if he's going to be lower owned than Powell. You can play them together, I think, but also if you're just playing one, assuming Kleber comes in lower owned than Powell, it makes for a reasonable pivot.
All right. Looks like there was one update here to projection. So Powell is number one on FanDuel at 33%. DraftKings, he's just 11. But, your mileage may vary. The price is very nice. We're going to talk about a bunch of guys here from the Pelicans as we get into the games here. But on DraftKings right now, we only have 3 players above 20%, and they're at 21, 20, and 20. So I guess technically not above 20%, but it's Aldridge, Butler, and Josh Jackson. Again, that's a function of the number of players in the pool. So this is something different for all you gamers that are coming in and usually are only playing on Friday or Saturday. This is one of the bigger slates we've had on Saturday in a while. So when you are trying to get above the field, just remember that you may not have to go as far as you do on the 6 or 6 to 7 game slates when a lot of the popular plays are in that 40 to 50% range, or that's where you need to get to really leverage on the field. Here, 40%, you're going to be doubling almost any player, at least on DraftKings with our early projection run. For those of you that have not yet signed up, slip behind the paywall. Use the promo code DFS strategy, all one word, and get 50% off any 1 month package at checkout. All right, Adam, I am looking here at some stuff, but let's finish off. Did you mention Harrison Barnes, Harry B?
No, I didn't get there. I like
Harry B. Oh my God, he's in my plans. He's never in my plans, but he's in my plans tonight.
Yeah, more so on FanDuel than DraftKings for me. He's cheaper on FanDuel. You have to roster the 2 small forwards. It's obviously a really nice matchup for him. He takes a usage hit with Doncic coming back, but he still should be the number 2 scoring option on this team. I have him projected for about 26% usage in 36 minutes here, which makes him a pretty strong play on either site, but I think a better play on FanDuel.
All right, got a couple people in the chat pinging me saying that Evans and Kojo are going to play. I'm going to verify that, Adam. But as I'm doing that, let's look over here to Cleveland. because as much as we're going to be doing cartwheels for the Mavs, Cleveland's in a reasonably good spot as well. Shetty Osman feels like a bit of a mirage, but he is there at 5,800. Alex Burks, 5,200, somewhat reasonable. You have Larry Nance Jr. in what should be a good matchup for him because there's no DeAndre Jordan anymore. He has played in the 3 games back from injury. His first one, he played 21 minutes. He then played 17 minutes, and then in his last game, he played 24. Got a double-double in that last one. Hopefully, we see him continue to get a minutes increase. You've got Ante Zizic, who is getting a ton of run at the center because there is no Tristan Thompson. Adam, we are going to like some Cleveland Cavaliers, but which ones are we going to like? Reluctantly.
You might.
Oh!
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not buying into the Nance minutes. He picked up, he closed that game out over Zizic, but it still looked like if it weren't for kind of fouls and game flow that you probably get 28 minutes for Zizic and 20 for Nance. Maybe it goes 24-24, but either way, it's not enough for me to get there. Chetty is playing really well, but the price tag also is going up. Even if I account for his uptick in usage recently and project him for more usage than he's had over the last month, I still get him as a pretty average play, even if I give him 38 minutes to go along with that because of the rising price tag. And I'm still not convinced that this is suddenly who Chetty Osman is in the NBA. He's had a few very, very good games strung together, but we have a pretty big sample size of him not being that good yet. So still reluctant to really buy in there. Alec Burks, the only other guy that is playing 30 plus minutes a night, and his price tag is up a bit as well, at 51 or 5,200. So I don't mind Chetty. I don't mind Burks, but I really doubt that I get to much of either one.
Right. Let me see where I've got them in my crunches. All right. The updated Doncic at 55 DK points gets him in 57% of the lineups. Powell's coming in at 28. I am getting some Rodney Hood, a skosh, and a skosh means 7% or less. A skosh of Burks. Dorian
That's a very, very precise way to define that.
Well, it's fun, Adam. I like to use some different words now and then. Larry Nance Jr. not coming in to the picture tonight. Shetty Osman is just at the break point of 5 fantasy points per minute, which is not going to get you in the cut. Pardon me, 5 fantasy points per minute would be amazing. 5 fantasy points per 1,000 on DraftKings. So it looks like my irrational exuberance towards Cleveland is going to be contained to Alex Burke, Hood, and then I will probably do a little manipulation to get in a little bit more, but we shall see if that's needed.
4,300 Colin Sexton isn't the end of the world either, assuming that he's like 2%.
Sexton. He is projected to be 4%.
Yeah, I'm fine with him at that ownership. If he crept up, I would lose a lot of interest real quick.
Okay. That is quite reasonable. And then thanks, Legalized and Killacam. They pointed out that Tyreek Evans and Kojo expected to play tonight. Dougie McBuckets has been ruled out.
Cool. So we can pretty much just cross off that entire game now.
I know. So for anybody in chat that was mad that we are skipping some of the games, well, we broke that one down and it's completely invalidated. Anything else, or shall we get on to the nationally televised game?
Yeah, let's move to some teams that actually have NBA players and play at reasonably fast paces.
I don't want to. Well, let me see here. Yeah, we're going to the Lakers and Golden State. Did we? We did Indiana and Miami.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yes, we just didn't like a lot about it, and we did Brooklyn. Okay, I don't want to pull a Lofty here. Now I'm all scared. I'm trying to tick things off. That was funny that you guys missed because I was in and out of my office listening to the show, and I never heard you guys talk about Washington that night, and I thought, I'll go back to the beginning and watch it. And then I got carried away getting ready for dinner, so I missed it too, which is that's the perfect confluence. In any event, the Lakers, Golden State. This one will be televised, guys and gals. This is a good one. Golden State's favored by double digits. We do have LeBron James back. We do have a 236 over under. I don't think anybody is going to sit for Golden State. The only person we're waiting on is Klay Thompson, who is game time decision with an illness. He did not practice yesterday, which would be, of course, Friday. He was a late scratch Thursday night due to this illness, so we'll have to see where he's at. Adam, I'm just going to turn you loose on this one. Talk about the Dubs first.
So obviously the Klay Thompson news is huge. If he's in, I think that he's a pretty decent option. If he's out, then you get a boost for especially Steph Curry, also Durant, but especially Steph Curry. I mean, he just becomes an absolutely like an even better version of himself when Klay's out. You get, even going back to last season, a nearly 40% usage rate from Curry without Klay on the floor, really independent of what you do with Kevin Durant. So I love Curry if Klay's out. If Klay's in, then with Curry's price tag going up, I still think he's a good play. It's just that it'll be a lot more difficult for me to prioritize him over guys in his price range at different positions, like center, like with Vooch. And also, obviously Luka is less expensive. So a lot depends on Klay there. Durant is really reasonably priced. I love the spot. It's a game where I expect him to the competitive juices, I guess, to kind of take over against LeBron. But he has been hurt by having his minutes not staggered with Curry anymore. Over the since they started doing that, he has a 27.8% usage rate, only an 18% assist percentage. Over his last few games, we've seen the usage rate climb a bit, 30 plus in 2 of the last 3. He was up around 28% last game. So I think that he's a good play at his price tag. There's just some risk there, especially if Thompson's back. Draymond Green, you know what you're getting. He's going to take a few shots and look really bad doing it. He's going to pick up some rebounds and some assists and probably play around 34 minutes in a really fast-paced game. So I like him. And then Cousins, there's nothing to indicate he's getting more than 25 minutes. It's a good matchup, but you can only do so much in that amount of time, no matter how good you are. So I would rank him behind every other starter.
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing that is somewhat intriguing about Draymond Green is he showed out with the blocks and steals the other game, and despite just doing absolutely nothing from the field, he can contribute fantasy points there. Now there might be a nice little turbo game, or this one's on the showdown, so that is something to remember with regards to Draymond. On the other side, LeBron surprised us all. Well, me, I wasn't as shocked that he played. Shocked that he played as well as he did. Played 40 minutes. I was messaging with Adam and saying, well, I don't know how many minutes to put him in there. Maybe 30, maybe 34. I'm going to put him in for about 40 fantasy points. That feels about right. Wow, he looked good. The only thing he didn't do was hit his three-pointer, which, hey, he doesn't always anyway, but 1 for 6 from 3. Outside of that, absolutely crushed it. He's back, Adam. I'm glad he's healthy. This does wonders. Makes this game that much better, but it's going to knock down some of the mid-tier guys here for the Lakers. Start off with LBJ.
Yeah, I mean, the Lakers as a whole, with him back, it just becomes pretty unappealing. LeBron himself is obviously a perfectly fine play, should play 36 to 38 minutes here in regulation, assuming a competitive game. But he's in the similar price point to Giannis, who is just a better fantasy producer. Giannis probably plays a few less minutes, but you're talking about a guy who averages, 1.65 to 1.7 fantasy points per minute compared to LeBron, who averages 1.4 to 1.5. So, it's LeBron might be better at actual basketball, but Giannis is better for DFS purposes. And that makes it tough. And then you have, all the centers on the slate. So I like LeBron perfectly fine. I just don't know that I get to a ton of him on this particular slate. Rajon Rondo still played 36 minutes. You see his production drop off a bit playing with LeBron this year. He's averaged 0.8 fantasy points per minute over 207 minutes. It makes sense because you have the ball in LeBron's hands a bit more. And that, obviously takes some assist upside away from Rondo. So Rondo's price tag is still reasonable. I think he's an okay play, but I think there are enough point guard options around him that he's probably not going to end up in a ton of my lineups. And then Kuzma, Ingram, both become much less appealing with LeBron out there. The center rotation with Tyson Chandler coming back from the dead and playing 15 minutes last game is an absolute mess. If it's not Chandler tonight, I think you see Kuzma at the 5. So I still don't really have interest in Zubats or McGee. From the Lakers side, it's pretty much LeBron or bust for me.
And that's where I've more or less landed as well with what I'm doing. It's very dicey. So I went and double checked. This game is on the full slate or it's on the showdown slate. But we did have a good question in chat. They were asking about, and this pertains to just this game as a standalone. But Andre Iguodala, hey, happy birthday to Andre. He turned 35 last week. Congrats. He will likely be tasked with guarding LeBron or at least harassing him for perhaps a few extra minutes than normal in this game. He's under 4K on DraftKings. Is that someone that you would potentially consider here in a game stack situation?
Yeah, I mean, sure. I have him at 26 or 27 minutes. He's perfectly fine, especially at 3,800 on DraftKings. I have much less interest at 5,100 on FanDuel. But yeah, I mean, I think he plays 26, 27 minutes. And also, I'll mention if Clay sits, you can go right back to Alfonso McKinney at 3,200.
Oh, okay. That one is one that was not a thought I had here. Sorry, I wanted to give a shout out to whoever had asked that Iggy question. But anyway, well, you got the answer. We'll get a shout out next time. I'll scroll back there and see what I can find. Anything else from this marquee matchup, Adam? It's going to be one hell of one to watch, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's a much more appealing game to watch than to roster a ton of guys from for me, especially if Clay's in.
All right, on to our next game. We've got some opportunities here, a little bit of value. We have New Orleans and San Antonio. Now, last night, the preliminary over-under, I think, was like 232. It's down to 229.5. That's still phenomenal when we have the Spurs involved. We do know that pretty much the key guys are going to be out once again for New Orleans. That would be Eton Moore, who is potentially going to be traded. That is Julius Randle, Mirotic Davis, and Elfrid Payton. Those guys are all ruled out already. So among some of our early popular plays, Adam, particularly on DraftKings here, let me go to the ownership. We have LaMarcus Aldridge as our highest owned player. He is at 21%. Kenrich Williams for New Orleans is coming in at 19%. He's 4,100. Does have that shooting guard, small forward eligible, so he's basically eligible for, 5 positions there on DraftKings. And then let's see, Darius Miller at 4,400 is coming in at 14%. Let's start off here with the Pellies. What do you like amongst these guys with all of this additional opportunity, and what is a very nice implied team total considering they are playing the Spurs, who have, once again under Popovich, much like Bill Belichick, he's figured out the team defense, and it's starting to get better every month.
Yeah, I mean, I like the price tags on these guys because of the opportunities that they have and the minutes that we should see them play. Like, I have Miller at 36 minutes. I have Okafor at 34. I have Drew at 36. I have Williams at 30. But they've come up, the price tags have come up to a point where on the cheap guys, there's still some value there, but it's a lot easier for them to disappoint. Like, it was one thing when Kenrich Williams was, 3,300 or 3,400. You don't really need him to do all that much. You don't need a whole lot to go right for him to pay that off. And the same for Darius Miller. Now you're talking about their price tags getting up to, Miller at 5K on FanDuel, 44 on DraftKings, Williams up over 4K. They still in the minutes projected can still beat that price tag. But if they're coming in at high ownership in a really tough matchup against San Antonio, I don't mind looking elsewhere on the slate for value. With it being an 11-game slate, I don't think that you have to kind of marry yourself to what we shouldn't forget are, like, in the case of Williams, a guy that's not even a rotation player, getting 30 minutes a night now. In the case of Darius Miller, it's a very scoring dependent, 3-point shooter. These are guys that can absolutely bust in this spot. So if they are going to be that highly owned, I imagine I'll come in under the field and just find 4K priced guys elsewhere.
All right, one guy I don't think I can go there at 7,000, particularly tonight. Jahlil Okafor, just not in my plans at all.
Yeah, it's just really tough on this slate. It's not that I dislike Okafor or anything. It's just that you have, all the centers at the top. You also have DeAndre Ayton, who's probable for a little bit less money than Okafor. He's my second favorite play from the he's my second favorite play on DraftKings. He's my favorite play on FanDuel from the Pelicans. But I just don't know how easy it's going to be to get there because of the position.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. If we have him projected at, so I goosed the projections to 43. He's coming in at 20%. And the reason I did that is he was coming in at 5.1, and that's on a 7 game slate. 5.1 per thousand is generally the break point there for DraftKings. So I wanted to see if he just tipped up a little bit, if he would start to come in lineups just as a function of there being so many players. So we have Okafor projected at 18. Again, if you give him a couple extra points, he's coming in at 20. What is your Okafor projection? Are you going as high as 42?
Yeah, I have him right around 42.
Okay. Look at that. See? That was adjusting projections that were there. I tell you, spend enough time. Somehow this knowledge transfer has occurred, Adam, unbeknownst to you. Now, if I can only win the quarter arcade. There we are. Let's see. Anything else from the Pelicans, or shall we talk about the Spurs?
No, that's it from the Pels for me. I mean, just to reiterate, it's not that I think these cheap guys are bad plays. Like, I still think that they provide value. It's just that from a tournament standpoint, the ownership projections you read off, I think, are too high.
Okay. And there is going to be, let me see, there's a two slate, a 3-game night slate here, which we'll get to on DraftKings. I'm just seeing so the Spurs are in a standalone situation here on DK as well. So you're only going to get them on the full slate. Looking at the Spurs, I've got, let's see, Aldridge coming in as my 5th most popular play. I got him at 32%. We're projecting him at 21%. That's running him out there at 47 DraftKings points. He's 8,100. That's just an outstanding price point. You can get him at forward or power forward, which is crucial on a night like this. He's going to be one of my favorite plays. I was also looking to get him at the end of the first round on a draft today, just because forward is pretty thin there. Talk to me about Aldridge. Do we like some Rudy Gay? Do we have some double Ds in our plans on Saturday? What do you got, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, Aldridge is priced completely different between the two sites. He's like 9,800 on FanDuel, which is more than I want to pay. He's 81 on DraftKings, which is really nice in a great matchup against Okafor and a fast-paced Pelicans team. So I'm much more interested there on DraftKings. He has I think 28.5% usage rate alongside DeRozan since the start of December, which obviously is nice. 28.9% alongside DeRozan. He's averaged 1.15 DraftKings points per minute over that stretch. So DeRozan being back doesn't completely kill him, especially because he does slide back to center, which gives him more rebounding opportunities. So really like him on DraftKings. DeRozan's price tag on both sites is really nice. He really has not played well, but the price tag's low enough that I still find him appealing. He does take he's taken a bit of a backseat to Aldridge after the first month or so of the season, kind of like as they've gotten like acclimated to each other. Aldridge has been the one to take over. DeRozan with a 26.2% usage rate alongside Aldridge since the start of December, 1.02 DraftKings points per minute. So maybe not quite as underpriced as it appears at first glance, but it is a nice matchup for him. So I don't have any issue with him either.
All right. DeRozan coming back makes the guards rotation a little bit tight here, but we'll see. And it's more from a shot opportunity. I know those guys will be on the floor, but he's going to get upper teens for attempts, and that's going to take away from what these guys have been doing, a couple shots apiece. So, yeah, we'll have to see. But it is the NBA, Adam. 22 teams in action. Someone's got to get the flu. Someone's got food poisoning. Someone has flu-like symptoms because it was Friday night, after all. Anything else from this game?
Derek White's fine. He's not a priority for me. Same with Rudy Gay. They both grade out as pretty neutral to slightly above average plays.
If DeRozan happened to be out, that would get them over the line for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if DeRozan for some reason is out, then Aldridge becomes a phenomenal play as well.
Yeah. I was just trying to think of some of these tertiary guys where you get used to playing them because somebody's been out for a few games. It's like there was a reason they were doing better than expected. Now that their prices come up and the original player is back in the plans, it tends to dampen things. 4 games left. This is a fun one. We have Denver at Minnesota. Denver is on the back-to-back. Amazing game last night, Adam. Absolutely amazing. I liked your tweet out there about Torrey Craig not starting and allowing Jokic to stay in the game longer to make sure they closed it out. Jokic just missed the triple-double. I was hoping for a stat correction for a phantom assist or something to get him there. Harden ended up continuing his streak of scoring 30 NBA points in a game. He is now tied for the second longest streak. He also just lost his streak last night of being the leading scorer. He was the leading scorer of the last 24 games he was in, both teams. So Jokic got him with 31, and then Malik Beasley hitting the threes. Good God, when did that happen? He's become very proficient there. I saw CSU Ram call him an elite three-point shooter. Let's not forget CSU is an unapologetic Denver homer. But you gotta like that. And then we had Torrey Craig that just wasn't missing. This was a fun game. As I was falling asleep, my currently winnings finally caught up to my entry fees, Adam. What are we doing on this back-to-back here? We have Jokic at 10-6, but you get a $900 discount to Karl Anthony Towns. That's a decision point, I think. Where are you landing with those two guys head-to-head?
Yeah, I mean, the discount's nice. Jokic, obviously, I love. He only played 31 minutes last night, so it's not like he's coming off of a huge minutes game either, which is nice. I love both guys. Whichever's cheaper, probably, or lower owned is the one that I'll end up getting more of, I would think.
Chat's asking the hard-hitting questions for me. This is directed at me. Who do I play more? Fred Van Elite. Bonus points for using Fred Van Elite or Tomas Satoransky. It's actually Satoransky. I don't think Van Vliet is a great play. That's why I run that tournament where I have to play him. That is to give you all the advantage so we can have some fun. But Tomas Satoransky, it's the guy I like. Looking towards, as we break this down, Jamal Murray has been ruled out already. We don't know what's going to happen with Gary Harris. He was a late rule out last night, but in plenty of time before the lock. Where do you think things are going to land with the remainder of the Denver Nuggets?
Yeah, so I mean, if we assume Harris is out, then I assume we see the same starting lineup that we got against Houston last night. I would trim a few minutes from Torrey Craig, put him back around 28 minutes, and give those minutes to Will Barton so that he gets back to 30. There's no James Harden on Minnesota that Torrey Craig has to be out there, play massive minutes against. It still was really confusing to me that he didn't just start the game and then bring Barton off the bench, because that would have made a ton of sense. But we saw, Craig basically play the entirety of the second and fourth quarters and half of the first and the third. So he still got 34 minutes. I would expect he loses a few minutes here because you just don't need him to go out there and do that against like Andrew Wiggins or something. So I'd give a few more to Barton, but I still think you would get huge minutes from Monte Morris. I still think you get really big minutes from Malik Beasley if Harris is out. So both of those guys, Morris and Beasley, become really appealing or remain really appealing value options.
Yeah, for me, I'm not doing the Will Barton thing, but I agree with you on Beasley and Morris. So we'll have to see here. And again, Beasley obviously a 36-point career high. Morris has been shooting out of his mind lately as well. That sort of stuff's not really going to continue, or it's unlikely to continue at such a high level for a long, sustained period of time. We don't necessarily know what's going to happen game to game. But careful with what you're setting your sights on as the expected production there. Looking over to the T-Wolves, we do know that Jeff Teague out yet again. I think this is 6 or 7 games. Tyus Jones is out. And then let me see if I've got a Derrick Rose update. He was still listed questionable. I'm going to assume all 3 are out for our purposes here. Let me see if I can read the tea leaves any better. If there's been any update on Derrick Rose. But this is going to put Jared Bayless in the mix, who's been playing a gazillion minutes per game. Hey, the veteran journeyman set a career high with 12 assists in his last game. We'll have to see what happens now. But if we're going to get 35 minutes from him, Adam, still seems in play. I don't think reasonable is the word anymore. Still seems in play on both sides.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say reasonable's perfectly fine. I mean, the price tag I don't think Bayless is as good as he's been playing. I don't know that that's even really debatable, but still, he played 36 minutes in regulation actually like 38 in regulation last game, and that was with Isaiah Cannon there. So we saw what I was hoping we would see, and Isaiah Cannon essentially replaced Terrell in the rotation instead of taking minutes from Bayless. So that was really good to see, and it makes us still feel comfortable about projecting Bayless for around 36 minutes. It's a nice matchup against Denver. We saw them play really fast last night, which, maybe they'll go out and run again tonight against a fast-paced Minnesota team. So the pace of this game could be pretty nice. And I think the price tag's still just cheap enough on Bayless where he's certainly right there in the conversation with like the Malcolm Brogdon, Thomas Satoransky type guys.
All right. We have Rose is questionable. That is just an update that came out from Fantasy Labs. No other information there. However, this is courtesy of RotoWorld. This came out yesterday afternoon. It says Rose has missed 3 consecutive games, but he was able to take part in Thursday's practice. We don't have any information on what happened Friday. We'll get a shoot around today, most likely, so we should have information. But if he's out, we'll want to, and I don't think he'll be a game time decision, Adam. I think we'll know one way or the other before lock, is my guess with him.
They have been doing a better job, it seems, since the coaching change of actually giving us reliable information ahead of time.
Yes. So if he's ruled, if they're saying game time decision, I'm going to figure he's probably and
stay in or out?
In.
Yeah.
Just because he practiced. So maybe they're hedging and just, as long as he doesn't strain anything, layup line, shooting or whatever, then he'll go. So that's going to be very contingent on what we do with Bayless.
They're also not on a back-to-back, so they should have shoot around today, I think.
Yes, that's correct. Nobody is on a back-to-back. Pardon me. Nobody is playing today, is playing tomorrow. 6 teams are on back-to-backs.
Yeah. No, I mean, I meant they didn't play yesterday, so they
correct.
Yeah,
correct. So, we got you. We're on the same page. We're using the same words. We're not on the same wavelength, but that's okay. That's okay, Adam. Anything else from the Denver, Minnesota, or shall we head on to our 3 remaining games?
Yeah, I mean, from the Minnesota side, I think Towns is a really good play. Obviously, he's a lot cheaper than Jokic on FanDuel, which is nice. He's cheaper on DraftKings too. If Rose is out, then it's a boost for Towns. But even if Rose is in, I think he's a good play. We've seen Wiggins' rebound numbers improve since the coaching change. I don't really know that one has anything to do with the other, if it's just a coincidence, but he's been playing a lot better, playing huge minutes, still reasonably priced in an appealing spot against Denver. So again, if Rose is out, it makes Wiggins better. If Rose is in, Wiggins is still okay. Just takes a little bit of a hit.
Right. Sorry, I thought you'd already covered Towns a little there.
One other thing I guess worth mentioning because of the matchup, going back to the Denver side, not as a priority or anything, but we've seen Mason Plumlee playing minutes alongside Jokic regardless of the matchup. This is a spot here against the Gibson and Towns front court where if Mike Malone wants to use that combination, it's really easy for him. So I don't think it would be surprising to maybe see a couple extra minutes for Plumlee.
All right, and good call out there on Gibson as well. If you're playing the 3-game turbo slate, Gibson then becomes in play because we have the Denver, Minnesota game, Atlanta, Phoenix, and Houston, Utah. So that will be a fun slate there. But you're going to need some savings, and Gibson is one to help get you there. Our next game that we will cover, Adam, let's go to Houston and Utah. Houston on the back-to-back, the elevation back-to-back. They have they played in Denver last night. They are now in Utah. Rudy Gobert kind of got there in the fourth quarter in a bigger way. We have loved taking centers against Houston since Clint Capella has been out. Do we continue that run for the slighted All-Star?
Yeah, he's another one that, just makes this a really, really deep position because it's a great spot going against Houston. We've seen them carved up by multiple centers here, and you get, plenty of block upside for Gobert going against James Harden. You get probably a very nice rebounding game for him. The price tag is reasonable on FanDuel at 9,100, especially when you factor in that Towns is 10.5 and Jokic is more than that. 8,400 on DraftKings is, again, just a total misprice. So, yeah, I mean, I really like Gobert. He'd be my favorite player. He'd be my favorite center in that price range, below Towns and above Ayton.
See where Gobert is coming in.
Or below, I guess, who's cheaper than Towns and above Ayton.
We've got Gobert coming in at 9% on DK. He only came in at 3% of my crunch. I have him just at 44 fantasy points right now. That's one of those ones I'll probably at least match the field, if not go 50% higher the field, and I will just tag him at 50 fantasy points, knowing I will get him in a certain number of my lineups. But if I'm going to really goose somebody like that, a lot of times I'll make sure I set a hard cap lower than just letting it go to 30 or 40% on a play like that. But he is definitely someone I want to have on my DK lineups tonight. We look over here on FanDuel. We have the field at 9%. He's also coming in at 3% here. Again, a little trickier on FanDuel just because there is only that one center position. I don't have the luxury of the utility position. Derrick Rose will try to play Saturday. That's the news. So most likely, I think he's going to go. That, of course, mutes Jared Bayless, as we discussed. Going to, let's stick with the Jazz here. You do have Ricky Rubio in this one. He had a nice game last night. He is potentially on the trading block. There's been rumors that Mike Conley may be part of a deal with Rubio. Rubio is still going to play unless he's actually traded, because the Jazz whole point of doing this is to make a longer run in the playoffs. They also need to get wins in the Western Conference. So I'm not concerned about Rubio or his minutes, because right now wins are more important than anything else for the Jazz. So I like Rubio. I'm okay with Derek Favors. I feel this game may be a little faster than I want to have him in, but then that means that Joe Ingles and Crowder make for some intriguing options here, particularly Crowder with this 3-and-D approach. What do you like here from the remainder of?
I still really like the price tag on Ricky Rubio. He started off slow yesterday, but ended up getting us there, and he's still very, very favorably priced at 61 on DraftKings and 63 on FanDuel. He played 35 minutes last night, lost a couple of minutes at the end of the game once it was out of hand. There's clearly no minutes limit on him anymore, and projecting him for somewhere between 32 and 34 minutes, I think is pretty fair. Even with being the second game of a back-to-back, because this should be a competitive game, and Utah does, need to win. So I really like Rubio. I really like the price point there. Not really on Donovan Mitchell at his still elevated price tag. There are more than enough shooting guard options that I don't need to get to Mitchell. Favors is fine. Crowder is okay. Neither one's a huge priority for me. Joe Ingles is very fairly priced. It's just more of an upside question on a slate where there are a ton of really high ceiling plays. Ingles is a guy that it's pretty difficult for him to really be like a must have in tournaments. So Gobert and Rubio are the two priorities for me from Utah.
All right. I love this game with the eye on that 9 o'clock 3-game turbo slate. So that will be where we branch out into some of these other additional plays. The 11-game slate, well, we have so many people to choose from. People that we are choosing from, Adam. James Harden. Let me see if I get any Chris Paul news here, but they had mentioned that Paul is not going to be playing on back-to-backs. That's what they said during his rehab. We will have to see if that transpires, but it would kind of be a surprise if he plays this evening. Looking at the news. Yes, here we go. He is expected to rest on Saturday versus the Jazz. He was playing through a sore lower back on Friday, and though he looked terrific, they're not going to have him be put at risk for additional injury. That's paraphrasing from Roto World there. So good to know. 12,500, Adam. We've got the pieces that'll help get us there via Dallas, a couple of the guys on Cleveland with the Pellies. What do you want to do here with James Harden?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because obviously we know what Harden can do without Chris Paul. He's got a 47.5% usage rate since Paul's injury without Paul or Capella on the floor, 38.5% assist percentage. He should play, somewhere between 38 and 40 minutes. It's not a great matchup, but that really just does not matter for him because he doesn't need to be efficient. He just needs to play. Like he's going to do everything on his own. Where I think it gets interesting as far as roster construction is, how deep the center position is and how much upside you have in those guys who are available for substantially less money than Harden. The fact that Giannis and LeBron are much less expensive than Harden. I think that there's pretty strong argument, and that, Luka is on the slate and a shooting guard on FanDuel and, a guard on DraftKings. There's no shortage of really, really high upside plays. I'm not sure you have to pay all the way up to Harden. So I think that it'll really come down to where his projected ownership's at. If we project him really highly because Paul's out, I'm fine kind of going not balanced, but more balanced, and losing one less scrub and dropping down from Harden to one of those other guys that's 2 or 3K cheaper. If everyone's off of Harden because he's playing Utah or whatever, then I'm fine getting there, because I still have the guy projected for right around 70 or 72 fantasy points.
Okay, that was the number I was waiting for. So currently I've got him in here at 68 on DraftKings. We are projecting in about this a tick or two less on FanDuel, just because of turnovers and no double bonus. But we've got on both sides we're projecting him at about 10%, 9 or 10. On my crunches on both sides, he's coming in at 15%. How does that feel proportionally for what you wanted? And just from the hip, since I know you haven't done lineup construction, tweaked all your minutes, etc.
Yeah, so you said he's projected for 10 and you were getting 15?
Yes.
Yeah, that seems fine to me.
Okay. So go ahead.
Yeah, normally I would just be jamming him in. This is just such a weird slate, as far as there are just so many good plays that I'm not sure I get tons of him.
Okay. And this is more just one of the ones where I wanted to put some numbers to it, because unless we get perspective, we're saying, I like him, I want to be above the field. Well, this is one of those where we said at the beginning of the show, field's really not huge on a lot of people, so you may only have to get to 20% to really, really put one over on where the masses are going to. So keep that in mind. Again, behind the paywall, promo code DFS strategy. If you guys have not checked it out yet, that's where you get all of the ownership projections. They are updated multiple times throughout the day, and then usually 2 or 3 times in that last hour up until lock, or as any news is.
And I'll be running crunches before I write the deep dive article today, so I'll be able to put it into a little bit better context there, exactly how I feel about Harden.
I think we need to name 11 games, Adam. I don't think the deep dive does this justice. This is like Jaws is the deep dive. The Meg is what you're doing today, because everything has to be bigger and scarier, because that's the world. All right. We did some meandering here. I am not really seeing Kenneth Faried for me in this one. Do you consider him at his increasing price tag, or anybody else?
Yeah, I don't think I'm really getting much else from Houston. Keep an eye on Eric Gordon's status. He left the game yesterday. He said that he could have come back, that he was fine, but he does have one hell of an injury history. So we'll have to see if he actually plays here. If he sits, you would get more minutes for Austin Rivers and Gerald Green. You would get them, potentially as value plays, especially because on FanDuel they're both below 4K now. But if Gordon's in, I don't really have interest in any of those guys, or at least not a lot of it. Faried obviously had a monster game last night. It's a more difficult matchup for him here. He still only played 30 minutes last night, in part due to foul trouble, but you have Nene back for this matchup as well. I only have Faried projected for about 32 minutes, and with his price tag rising, I just can't get to him over Gobert, who like Gobert or Ayton or any of the other expensive centers we talked about.
Yeah, it's a fun story. Love to see him. Love the high energy. Problem is, there's a lot of people on the court tonight that are good rebounders. That makes it tough for this price. Last night, he sort of got there, but he scored 20 points. I think he only had 7 or 8 rebounds, if memory serves. So that's kind of tonight. I would expect like 15 and 7. That's not going to do it. That's just not going to. So we have him at 9% on DK. He's not in any of my crunches. We have him at 2% on FanDuel. We ready to head on to our next one? We got 2 left, Adam. This is the marathon state.
Yeah, let's go.
Atlanta, Phoenix, yet another game with a 235 over under. This one should be fun. Oh, wait, not so much, because damn it, everybody's healthy with Atlanta, and they are being judicious with their minutes across the board, which is annoying.
Unless your name is Trae Young, apparently.
Pardon?
Unless your name is Trae Young, apparently.
Well, I mean, you got to. He's just as good as Luka Doncic, right?
Yeah, that trade worked out for both sides.
Both sides. Young is a well-deserved lottery pick play. He will be better, but I liken him to a Monta Ellis, if you will, his career fantasy gunner. What it is. But Atlanta, current day, current iteration, going against Phoenix here, who, by the way, should have DeAndre Ayton back. Is there anybody that intrigues you from Atlanta? I mean, I would love John Collins in this if I knew John Collins was going to play 33, 35 minutes. I don't know that he'll go over 30. That's a problem for me.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's obviously a really nice matchup for the Hawks. We saw Trae Young play 37 minutes last night out of nowhere, which was, obviously really good to see, but I also just can't bank on that happening game in and game out. So I have him projected for the most minutes at the team, but I still just don't feel comfortable going above 32 minutes for Young, which makes him, a pretty mediocre play. 28 minutes of Dwayne Dedmon is fine, but on a slate this big, it's nothing special. John Collins, again, it's a great matchup, and if I project him for 30 minutes, I get him as a pretty average play. If you were going to get 34, then I would really like him, but I just have no reason to think he actually gets there. So Young, Collins, Dedmon, even Herter, like they're all okay. It's just that I don't think I get to much of them because Atlanta's playing so many guys right now, and there are so many good plays on the slate. I just don't really feel the need to have heavy exposure to a really, really volatile spot in Atlanta.
Yeah, completely agreed. So unless somebody is going to be out in this one, my wife just sent me a text. It says, "I'm in Florida. I'm going to forward your info." She's downstairs. I wonder if she is telling me that whatever she's telling me in 2 weeks she'll be in Florida. Yes, that I know. But it's like, I just saw you this morning. I don't think you're in Florida right now. Sorry, that just tickled me. Okay. But unless somebody's going to be out for Atlanta, yeah, they're not going to make my short list here. Now, Ayton is back after having been out for 6 games. I think that Rashawn Holmes is going to take the most direct impact from that one, but there will be a little bit of a trickle down for Kelly Oubre, for Josh Jackson, etc. I still like Oubre, particularly if he's coming off the bench with the second unit. Nice matchup for him. He's fairly priced at $5,900 for what he has been doing lately. Mikal Bridges has been, the word is outstanding, but at $4,100, Adam, on DraftKings, he's definitely going to be in the mix for me, particularly on that 3-game turbo slate. And then the last guy I had at first in my show lineup was Akobo. I have since pulled him out, but he is $3,500. So I think on that turbo slate, I may get to a little bit of him. But let's not bury the lead. Devin Booker, $8,800. Is he the pivot off of Luka Doncic?
I want to play him in addition. I mean, I love Luka. I don't plan on pivoting away from Luka, but yeah, Booker right there with him. I mean, he's played 251 minutes this season alongside DeAndre Ayton without TJ Warren on the floor. He's averaged 1.25 fantasy points per minute, 34.5% usage, 30.5% assist percentage, facing an Atlanta team that plays really fast, does not play defense, should not blow Phoenix out, which is a huge issue that Phoenix deals with quite frequently. So you're getting a game where it's going to be an awful basketball game in terms of quality of play, but the pace should be there. The lack of defense will be there. It's a perfect spot for Devin Booker. Really, really like him quite a bit here. Also, I like Josh Jackson. I don't like him quite as much as the field is currently projected to like him, but should still get around 32 minutes at a very fair price tag. And DeAndre Ayton, I think, is just underpriced, assuming he's going to play around 30 minutes here. We've seen for the most part this season, Phoenix, the way they handled Devin Booker, he gets injured, they sit him, and when he comes back, he plays. And so I expect that they are treating Ayton the same way and that he's not coming back until he's good to go. I have him in for 30 minutes here. He's averaged 1.1 points per minute alongside Booker without Warren this year, 20.5% usage rate, 19.5% rebounding percentage. Really nice matchup against Atlanta, 6,800 on DraftKings, and even more, stands out even more on FanDuel at 7K, where centers are normally, a little bit overpriced. So I really like those two. And then I get to Jackson and Oubre as perfectly fine options as well.
All right. This is a question for Alex G here. On the 3-game slate, is it Harden or is it Booker at the discount for you if you were choosing between the two?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. It's hard to say right now, but with outside of Denver, there's not a ton of value on the slate. So I think that I probably get to more Booker.
That's where I would assume as well. That one. If you are going to go to Harden, then you're going to look at players like Akobo and some of the other ones, and it may I mean, the difference in a 2v2 may not be worth the 15 to 17 points that Harden potentially in a regular situation in his tougher matchup will outscore Booker by in his phenomenal matchup. And then what are you giving up? You know, a $6,000 player. That's like a Kelly Oubre versus
Right.
Okobo. Last game of the night. This would be the hammer. You know what? Adam's going to be taking a hammer to his fingers so he doesn't have to write to this column today. But we wish him Godspeed as he gets ready for his journey. He's hoping we slow this down, just to avoid things. But we have the Philadelphia 76ers in Sacramento coming off of their outstanding win against Golden State. Philly is favored by a bucket in this one. It is a 233 over-under. Let's start off with Joel Embiid, and literally nobody is equipped to guard him. Oh, and we do know that Redick and Wilson Chandler are out for the 76ers.
Yeah, so I mean, Embiid, obviously a great matchup here against Sacramento. We saw him just absolutely dominate the second half against Golden State, getting to the line pretty much at will when they tried to defend him with Kevon Looney. Really just took that game over, and obviously he's capable of doing that. He's averaged about 1.7 fantasy points per minute over the last month. The only problem with Embiid is that he's one of the more expensive guys out of that group of him, Vooch, Towns, and Jokic. He's up at 11.6 on FanDuel. It's kind of tough to justify paying an extra, $1,000 over Cat or an extra $2,000 over Vooch because it has nothing to do with Embiid. It's just that, he's not likely to score that many more points than the rest of that group all that frequently. So that's the only knock there. You get to guys like Ben Simmons, who I think is still underpriced for how well he's been playing. Should play big minutes here, potentially get some extra time at the 4 with Wilson Chandler out, which could be more productive minutes for him. Really nice matchup. So I like Simmons a lot. I like Butler at 73 on DraftKings, much less interested at 86 on FanDuel. And then you do get some value from this team. Corey Brewer should play 30 plus minutes. We've seen him play well when he gets the opportunity this season. So I think that he's definitely one of the better value plays on that 3-game slate. And I think depending on ownership, like if you're going to get an ownership discount from, those Pelicans guys that we talked about, like if everyone's going to go to Darius Miller at 4,400 or whatever he is, I'm fine taking Corey Brewer instead. They're not really that different in terms of projectability, and it's a better matchup for Brewer. As far as the front court goes, Muscala should pick up some more minutes at the 4, especially against a pretty big Sacramento team. Jonah Bolden probably gets the start, I would think, in place of Chandler. And if he plays well and stays out of foul trouble, I think you could get pretty reasonable run. More of a FanDuel play than a DraftKings play, though.
All right, TJ McConnell, 3,500 on DK.
Yeah, I think that he's interesting. It really depends how this game goes because you could see more minutes for McConnell with everyone kind of sliding down a position and Ben Simmons playing the 4. The one thing that makes me a little hesitant that happens is that Sacramento's got a big front court. So I think it makes it a little bit easier for Philadelphia to go with Embiid plus Muscala or Embiid plus Bolden for some of those extra minutes. So I think that if you're playing a lot of lineups, McConnell is a pretty interesting value play, especially because he will be lower owned than those Denver guys or than the Pelicans guys. But if you're like single entering, I'm not super confident in how this rotation plays out because it could go a couple of different ways.
All right, and then since in the last 30 days, we do have 76ers playing at the 5th fastest pace and Sacramento playing at the fastest pace. So this one should be a track meet. Not really intrigued by anybody in the front court for the Kings. Just worried that there's going to be potential foul trouble going against Joel Embiid. So Willie Cauley-Stein, Marvin Bagley, not as excited about them. De'Aaron Fox, okay matchup for him. There are other directions I'd like to go for 7,400. I need to see 40 fantasy points to get there. And then the guy I'm okay with is Bogey Bogdanovic is an adequate option along with Buddy Hield. I don't hate Buddy Hield. Are you getting any Kings?
I think Bagley's still too cheap, especially on DraftKings. He's 5,300 over there. Played 28 minutes last game against the Hawks. That was a game that blew out, but just looking at the rotations, it seems like Bagley kind of played what he was supposed to. So I think that he's a pretty interesting play. Cauley-Stein is cheap enough where I think he has tournament upside, but again, there's just a ton of opportunity cost at the position. It is a risky matchup going against Embiid, and we did have Harry Giles come back and play 20 minutes against the Hawks. Cauley-Stein was in foul trouble in that game, but it just makes Cauley-Stein's minutes a little less secure if Harry Giles is suddenly back into the rotation. So, and Fox at 7,400 on FanDuel is fine. Much less interested in these Kings than a lot of other plays on the slate, though.
Yep, and that's more or less where we have the early projection here on DK. We've got Bagley at 16, Bogey at 9, Buddy Hield at 6, Willie Cauley-Stein at 9, Fox at 3. Bagley's coming in on 11% of my crunches. I'm projecting him for 30 fantasy points. The other guys are coming in at 2 or less, so just a smattering. And I ran 150, so that means they're only popping up on 2 or 3. So not that many from the Kings side of the game. Over from the Philly side, Corey Brewer, we are projecting him right now at 13%. I'm getting him at 34. We are projecting Butler at 20. I'm getting him at 13%. The other guys, Embiid, Simmons, and TJ McConnell are all between 10 and 12. They're coming in at single digits on crunch. Adam, let's talk a little bit of Thrive here and get on out of here. We are, of course, sponsored by Thrive. Well, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, but we throw them a little bit of a bone here because, hey, we're nice here at Osimo. So what we got here, I'm going to drop the link in chat. Thrive is a player prop site. So how it works there is you download their app. I'm going to send you, deleted it. I'm going to send everybody the link, and you also get a deposit bonus that we have worked out with them. You come in through this link. So let's put that in the YouTube chat. If you deposit $10, they'll match it. If you deposit 100, they'll give you 20. If you deposit 200 or more, they'll give you $50. That's dollars available for immediate play. Not a bad way to go. How it works is they put out 20 questions for their props, and you choose 10 of them. And then it's an either or, obviously. And if something is more likely to happen, you get less points. If it's less likely to happen, you get more points. It's like a player prop. So they, I'm sure, will have some big Super Bowl contests. They have some basketball contests every day. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they're doing for baseball, Adam. That should be a lot of fun, looking for strikeouts, number of hits, total bases, etc. What do you got for us? We do football, or are we going to do baseball or basketball?
Yeah, basketball. Got to start with Luka here.
Okay.
26.5 total points plus rebounds, 95 points for the over, 105 for the under.
I'm taking the over.
Yeah, I have him at, so the prop is 26.5 points plus rebounds. I have him at 26.2 points with 9 rebounds. So taking the over there. Going to the most appealing game to watch, Rajon Rondo. Actually, we'll go to LeBron first. 36.5 total points plus assists for LeBron. 100 points either way.
I'm going to take the over, but that's close. LeBron has been circling. The last game was the warm-up. He wanted to play in this one as best. So yeah, he's geared up for this one. I'll take the over. It's going to be close, but I like that it's 100 on.
I have him at exactly 36.5, so it's an but you know, I wouldn't pick it if I were playing on Thrive. If I had to guess, I would just, I guess, throw it toward the narrative and take the over. But yeah, pretty good line there. Staying in that same game, you have Rajon Rondo, 12.5 total rebounds plus assists with 110 points to the over.
I'm going to take the under.
I have the over with the extra. I haven't projected for 14.9 rebounds plus assists, and you get 110 points for the over. So definitely taking the over there.
Okay.
Same game, different team. Steph Curry, 42.5 points plus rebounds plus assists, 105 for the over.
Well, if you think Clay's out, then I would take the over. If you think Clay's in, I'd take the under. I'm going to take the under.
So with Clay projected in, I got 42.6. So 0.1 over. Since there are 105 points for the over, I would take the over. If Clay is out, then I would absolutely take the over.
Absolutely no question there. I kind of think.
All right, last one here. Going back to the center position, Minnesota versus Denver. Karl Anthony Towns, 32.5 points plus rebounds.
I'll take the over. I think he gets like 37.
Yeah, that's about where I'm at as well. So I would take the over also.
All right, that is Thrive. As you can see, not that hard. Not that hard at all. We've got a couple free articles for you if you're going to play the Super Bowl and it's one game contest. And if you forget to enter the full Super Bowl contest, you can play the second half contest. And if you forget to play the second half contest, both domain sites have come out with fourth quarter contests. Adam, what is the world coming to? But dropping the link there, you can check out that article written by yours truly. I think it's my 55th article I've written this far for NFL on the primetime slates. This, of course, is breaking down the big daddy of all of them. So check that one out. We've got a fun little breakdown that Nolan Kelly wrote discussing how Chipotle Addict approached the conference championship single game slate. So that was an intriguing one. And then we've got, of course, behind the paywall projections and ownership projections, as well as Alex's personal grades for everybody in the big game. Also, we have On the Contrary. That is already recorded. It's on the YouTube channel here. That is the final show of the season with one Evan Silva, with Alex Baker, Osimo, and Chris Baggs, so you can check that one out. And then lastly, an expanded live before lock tonight starting at 5:30. You will get one Fast Eddie Fear giving his thoughts on the 11 games going down tonight in the association. With that, you can follow Adam at ShipMyMoneyDFS. I am at EMACDFS, and of course it is Osmo_COM. Good luck, gamers.